Hello everybody, welcome to Beyond the Reel. I'm your host, Jonathan Thompson, and we are live on E360 TV and all associated channels. Today, we're going to talk about screenwriting. This show's all about filmmaking, the magic filmmaking, everything involved. And today I'm joined by James Kirk. James, welcome to the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Not a problem. Now, James runs Enterprise Entertainment, and you can find them on all good social media platforms. So Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and just look up Enterprise Entertainment. So, James, tell us about how you got started in the film industry.
I got started on doing a PA work on a film called Struck by Lightning that was written by Glee star Chris Colfer, and starred Allison Janney and a whole bunch of TV people. And I just fell in love with being on set. Like I said, did some PA work on that, and it was a no budget thing, so I also got to be a little bit of an extra. And so I also got to be on a little bit of camera on that. If you pause it just right, you can actually see me a little bit. You see the bald head. And I just fell in love with the process, and it kind of got me interested. And I was in college up in Oregon at the time, and I made the move down to Los Angeles. Got a job with a talent management company called James Kirk Entertainment, and that kind of got me started making some connections. In the meantime, I started writing some scripts. I mostly focus on television, but I have a couple of feature stuff that I've done as well.
Okay. And we have been joined by John Aldrich, who says, "Hi, James."
Hi, John.
So you actually work as a scriptwriter with several of the big companies right now, and you have a couple of projects that are cooking.
Yes. My main project that I've been working on, I've worked on it for a while, is called The Final Exam. It's a half-hour multicam sitcom. In fact, we just finalized a deal with Fuller House star Michael Campion to play the lead role. He's going to be playing a character named Logan. He's a teenage kid that's been battling cancer his entire life. Gets a second chance from God, who happens to be his history teacher. And stuff. I'm really excited about that. We've been talking to several of the different networks and have some offers. We've also got like two or three Glee alumni attached and stuff. We've got a really good cast that we've been working together on that.
That's amazing. Now, you brought up there that God is his history teacher.
Yeah.
There's not much of a better history teacher than you'll pass the exam because I know everything.
Yeah, and I mean, we do explore that aspect of it. Like, God will give his take on some historical facts as he's kind of going through teaching and stuff like that. So, I mean, the other kids in the class don't know that he's actually God and stuff. So it's kind of like a Superman Clark Kent type of thing.
Okay. Well, that sounds fantastic, and that one's actually, you've got some offers on the table in that one.
Yes, I can't go into the details, obviously, but yeah, we've got some offers on the table and stuff. And I mean, we put together a really good package. We've raised some financing off of that and stuff. So I mean, I'm really excited about it. I'm looking forward to actually, once the COVID situation is taken care of actually going through and getting my cast together and start shooting and stuff. I can't go into a lot of the details, but like, we've had some amazing people just reach out and say that they wanted to be a part of this project and stuff. So
fantastic. Now, you did bring up COVID there, and part of what I want to do with this show is talk about the film industry, trends in the industry, what's going on in the industry. And as we know right now, it's very little. Yeah. I've heard a couple of things that, make me wonder what's going to happen in the future. I've heard that now is the time for indie people because they're going to miss out a whole season of summer blockbusters. Those big studios are not going to make any money this summer. So people are saying, indie people, this is your time. I've also heard Fortress Hollywood is on the way, where they're going to knuckle down and they're only going to be talking to people they know they can make money on. Where do you think Hollywood's going to go? Where do you think the film industry is going to go during this time and after it?
I think it's going to be kind of in the middle. I mean, right now, the unions, SAG, WGA, PGA, DGA, and all the other ones, they're being extremely cautious. What products they approve. So, you're not going to get them to see a lot of the films with the bigger star names and stuff. So I mean, it's going to bring in a lot of new talent and stuff, like new writers, new directors, and stuff like that. But I mean, they are going. I mean, they're going to rely. A lot of studios are going to rely on the proven franchises. I mean, one of the few projects that's actually been approved to resume filming is the next Jurassic World.
Yes.
Filming out in Hawaii because they're on a deserted island and
And
stuff.
I know Pinewood in London was recently in talks with Tom Cruise about reopening with limited cast to shoot parts for the next Mission Impossible film.
Yeah.
So
I mean, you're going to see some of that, I think. But I mean, like I know, like we're probably not going to get a fall TV season this year, even with the established shows and stuff. Because I mean, the unions, I mean, they need to be very careful and stuff. I mean, and
yeah,
the insurance companies as well. I mean, the leads in these series, the insurance policies on them are astronomical.
definitely. And that's something else that's been going around with the SAG rules and things like that, saying do not sign any kind of waivers. Do not sign away your health and your rights.
Yeah. I work with a group out of Ohio. I was talking with the owner of it, and there's some indie stuff going on out there, and they're scared that because they represent these kids and actors. They're scared that these kids, because they're non-union projects, and they're not taking the precautions that are needed.
Yeah. And John Aldrich just said there, it's an interesting time for the industry. It's the small productions' time to shine. And again, like we were just saying, part of that I can agree with. You know, they're going to be looking for a fresh injection to fill their pockets, but they're not going to be looking at just any small production. They're going to be looking for people who have an established audience, people who have capital, people who have letters of interest from stars.
Yeah.
You know, so it is a good time for the small production company to knuckle down and start working on that business plan.
Yeah, I mean, I've been doing that with my own stuff. I mean, other than the final exam, I have a few other projects that I've been working on and stuff. Like, I've been working with Zachary Ty Bryan from Home Improvement, back to Alan's oldest son, back in the day. He brought me on a couple of his projects, and I've brought him on a couple of mine, and we've been kind of getting stuff ready to go and stuff for these types of things. And he's been kind of serving as a mentor, which I'm extremely grateful for and stuff. So.
Oh, fantastic. Now, how did you get started screenwriting? Like, how did you get involved in the writing side of it? Since you say when you first got on, you were being a PA, and then you did some extra work. What got you started with your screenwriting?
First, I started writing after Struck by Lightning. I started writing a feature called Out at the Plate. It's absolutely terrible. It's the first thing I've ever written, but I mean, and stuff. And I mean, I didn't know the formatting. I didn't know any of that. So I mean, it's like I said, it was bad and stuff. And it was a nice escape for me. I mean, I had a hard time growing up and stuff. I mean, I was almost always an outsider and stuff, and just kind of being able to use my writing. I mean, even with the final exam and these other projects that I write on, it's like it's my time when I'm writing and sitting on the computer. I'm escaping from whatever's going on in the real world, like escaping like from the COVID situation. Like, I mean, like for final exam, we're pretending the COVID situation doesn't exist on the page and stuff. I mean,
Yeah,
and stuff in that world.
and you're an admin on one of the groups I'm in Facebook with the Screenwriting Network, and there's a lot of people talking about writing scripts with COVID right now and coming out with things. And that's one of the reasons I wanted this first episode to be on screenwriting. Not only is it the first stage in making a film, it's also the bit that a lot of people don't have the experience in. And a lot of people who want to be a director, and that's where I put my focus mostly, is directing. You got to be able to tell a story. You've got to be able to.
Story is key.
Yeah, and that's. I was writing stage plays for decades, and when I wrote my first screenplay, the resource I had to check the formatting, check how it was done, and change it from stage play to film was actually the 4th edition of A New Hope. Have you ever read that?
I have not.
The first paragraph is hilarious. That nice epic scene with the death, like the Tantive and the Death Star chasing it as they go towards Tatooine.
Mm-hmm.
The most used descriptive word in that entire thing is awesome. An awesome shot of a planet, an awesome Star Destroyer, the white corridor, and Darth Vader steps out in all his awesomeness, you know? And it was hilarious. And one of the things that David's just put there, you know, by the time the script is produced, be long after COVID. At least I hope it should be. So it's not a good idea to be focusing on COVID right now.
Yeah, and people go to the movies to kind of escape and relax their lives. I mean, and stuff. And so, I would not recommend writing a COVID script. I mean, if the studios want a COVID script, they're going to go to the people they know that can, because they're going to need to crank it out like as soon as possible.
Yeah,
like good or thing and stuff. And it's just and stuff. So I mean, if you're a newbie or just starting out on this, don't do COVID script. Don't reference COVID.
No, it's okay. It's okay to reference pandemics. It's okay to reference end of world bacterias. Look at 28 Days Later. Look at Resident Evil. Things like that. So don't focus on a current pandemic. Make one up.
Yeah, one of the members in our screenwriting networking group that you mentioned is Bob Sands, who's writer. He does, I think he's got like 18 or 19 produced scripts. One of the things that he's constantly trying to remind people is that you can write your script and in 20 years, they'll finally make it. And write a script about the COVID situation, it's going to be so out of date that people aren't going to want to even read it.
Yeah. Well, like you brought up earlier, Jurassic World has been given a green lit because they're on a deserted island off the coast of Hawaii. And when I was young, I always wanted to be a paleontologist. I went to university studying geology, and I did paleontology as part of the course, and I was super excited. And when I was growing up, Jurassic Park came out. 20 plus years later, they're still making Jurassic Park movies. So like you said, it may be 20 years before your script gets made, or your script, if it's good enough, may get made for the next 20 years.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like they just announced Scream 5, and the original came out in 1996, I believe. Yep. And stuff. I mean, this is going to appear soon without Wes Craven since he's passed, but like, I mean, they're bringing in David Arquette and Courtney Cox and probably Neve Campbell. And I mean, it's like they've been doing this for 20 some years and stuff. And I mean, they have a plan on how they're doing this. I mean, like when you're planning out, like if you're planning a movie, you don't plan out a sequel right away. Like don't write the sequel right away, because you never know.
Yeah.
So and that's one of the things, like that I see a lot, is that people want to write this big long trilogy, like the next Marvel cinema universe,
the next Lord of the Rings kind of thing. Yeah.
Focus on the first one first and stuff. And it's like,
yeah.
Well, once you get the first one, then you can kind of see what happens, because most likely what's going to happen is if the first one's any successful, they're going to bring in one of their writers to work on it instead of you.
Yeah. And that's perfectly fine, because depending on the deal that you make as the writer, you could still get royalties off anything they make afterwards, but that's all the kind of deal that you can approve, which is where literary agents and entertainment lawyers and things like that come in handy when trying to negotiate for long-term contract. If you're just writing a one and done, it's a one and done.
And I mean, these days, you can have an idea for a sequel, but don't count on it. I mean, just because they're going to bring in someone that they know to work on the sequel. I mean, and that person may consult with you. You may get a producer's credit type of thing, but chances are they're going to bring in a different writer. And I mean, even on your original pilot project, they might say, "Hey, you did a great job on this script. It's absolutely amazing. We're going to bring in this writer, completely rewrite it from scratch, but you did a great job," type of stuff.
Yeah. Well, going back to old movies, the Mario Brothers.
Oh God, that was bad.
Yeah, but they wrote like 7 or 8 different versions. They brought in 5 different writers, and what it was originally going to be and what it ended up being are two completely different films that went through like 5 or 6 different remakes before they got to that. So just because you've written something that they've bought, doesn't mean that's what they're going to make. And I know a lot of first-time screenwriters, because I've come across this as a director. They'll give me the script. I'll like the script. I'll enjoy the script. I'll start making changes to fit my artistic vision as the director. And then they go crazy. Why are you changing it? What are you doing? I have a style. My fans like my style. Your film fits my style. I'm keeping your story. I'm just making slight changes. And they go crazy because it's not exactly as they penned it. So you got to have a thick skin.
Yeah, I sold a sci-fi comedy series in January to a streaming service that I can't name. And I mean, I sold them the pilot, and they're doing whatever the heck they want with it. I mean, I'm not involved in it anymore. I get the created by credit. I get a paycheck every time that it starts to air, and that's the end of it. And I'm happy to just cut the paycheck and go focus on something else.
Yeah, and that's a couple of the series I've written. Same thing. I gave them the base. I gave them the first season, and what they've done with it after that is up to them. I get money in the mail. Yeah. Mailbox Money is a writer's friend.
Yeah.
Now you've actually, we were talking earlier, and you see you've actually got a jump on the lots for Warner Brothers and Universal Pass, and you've made a lot of contacts through there. And here we go. David has just put, so the script can be a prelude to the final project, not a blueprint for the project. Does this happen a lot for new writers?
I think so, because I mean, they're gonna want to have someone that they trust to probably do the final draft. I mean, if you write the absolute most amazing thing in the world, and they're still gonna have someone do some touch up because they want to. They're gonna want to add their little touch. I mean, it's like if you're building a house type of thing. I mean, you have the blueprint, which is the original script, but the designers are gonna want to come in and decide, okay, instead of you using this nice blue house, we're going to make this a bright pink house type of thing. And I mean, and it's going to be literally like that, where you might think it's the ugliest house in the world when it's done, but you still got that check.
Yeah. And that's where I want to start moving the discussion towards the formatting options. Because one of the things I always try and tell people when they're writing a screenplay, and this is going back to me being a stage director first and then moving into film, white space is your best friend.
Oh, absolutely. For me, I do it a little differently than what a lot of people do. Because I mean, I see a lot of people. I used to be a reader for a small production company, and stuff. And like one of the things that would annoy me the most as a reader is that I would read 5 pages of description, and then the scene. Well, if you were to actually shoot that scene, would literally be 30 seconds.
Yep.
And like, so for me, and this is just my style, it works for me, is that I go by the less is more philosophy, and that I don't write novels. I'm lucky to have maybe 2-3 sentences for an action on the opening action line. I focus more on trying to tell the story instead of like flowering it up. I mean, like, I'm not going to care when I'm like, the producers and directors probably aren't going to care that I described every facet of the car that the bank robbers are escaping in.
Yeah.
Stuff.
And John's put there, format is a guideline. It's not a hard requirement. Structurally, yes. But look at Nightcrawler. Very flowing format that sucks you into the story. And I agree completely. There is no hard, this is the way it's done. But there's definitely, this is a guide, because when you write a script, and this is something that's difficult to get across to a lot of new writers, you're not writing a script for you. Yeah. You're writing a script for the director. You're writing it for the actors. You're writing it for the set designer.
Okay.
Yeah. So what you're writing,
when you have those things, like when you have a director, when you have the set designer, but I mean, for the first part, you're writing it for the reader, because you need, in order to get to those other places and people, you need to have the readers like, hey, this is an amazing script. And so, I mean, if you make it a hard read, like, I mean, like I said, I was a reader for a small production company, kind of helped me learn what not to do and stuff like that. I mean, you write 20 pages of just describing a car, it's not going to be something that the reader's going to want to pass on to their boss and say, hey, this is an amazing script. And I mean, when I was doing the reading for that company, they would send the producer would say, hey, read these 5 scripts, tell me which one you like the best. And it's like, this is the only one of these that actually didn't make me vomit.
Yep. And I've had that with it. I had a script come across my desk that had the most beautiful, eloquent, 5-page long description for a cup.
Yeah.
And every time it gets referenced, it comes back. It's a chalice. It's a goblet. It's the cup.
And unless it's a goblet of fire from Harry Potter, it really doesn't matter.
Yeah. Yeah. You don't need descriptors of every tiny little detail.
Yeah.
And that brings me to transitions. When I write something, unless it is vitally important to a dramatic moment, I leave the transitions out.
Same. In my pilot script, I actually opened it up over here, so it's behind me. But I have it's a 48-page script. There's one transition in it.
Yeah. And let me guess, fade in?
No, I don't use fade in. I don't use fade in. There's a scene where one of the characters blacks out, so I have it smashed to black.
Ah. Yeah, and again, that's a perfect example of what I was saying. Unless it's dramatically important to the story, you leave it out.
Yeah, because like in this particular scene, the character blacks out and wakes up in a new location. So I mean, it's that smashed out black is vital to that story and stuff. And very rarely do I use any other transitions. Like I don't use fade in, fade out type of stuff because I mean, like I said, I write mostly for television and stuff, and they don't really do that type of thing. It's a little credit.
And a lot more movies now are using the one-shot take, but any good director, like Extraction, the Netflix film with Chris Hemsworth, there's some beautiful 12 to 13-minute scenes in there, and it looks like it's all one scene. But as a director, you sat watching going, that's a cut, that's a cut, that's a cut, that's a cut. You know? And John just brought up another great point. Too many novice writers write scripts as though they are directing. Yeah. And that brings us back to what we said earlier. When you write your script, it's not for you. Whenever I get a new script, almost every time there's something in there that I have to white out.
Yeah, like camera movements. You do not want a camera movement in your spec script.
No.
I don't care how how dramatic it is. Like you want it like this or like this. You want a pan or whatnot. You don't.
Yeah, and David said that the one thing he learned early on in the process is don't write that. And then John just put there 1917 is an iconic piece for a one-shot take. And those one-shots, they're becoming a lot more popular, but they were using one-shots back in black and white film.
Yeah, well, they're becoming popular with cinematographers. The actors that I've seen you hate it because they have to be absolutely perfect.
Yep, and that's where it's all clever cinematography, because if you do it right, the actor doesn't have to be perfect. It's all in the camera work and the directing to make it line up, and then of course you got your editing where you can cut just that half a second off, or that 2 frames.
Yeah,
and I know I've received several scripts. You were a script reader that people are writing with a budget in mind. It's going to be a low budget film, so they write it like there's no money at all. And I've found in my experience, when you write with the idea it's going to be low budget, you ruin the story.
It kind of depends like on what you're doing. I mean, like I produce my own stuff, so I mean, I do write with budget. I have a little bit of budget in mind, but I mean, on some of the stuff that I've been writing that I'm not producing myself and stuff that I'm taking out, it's like budget goes out the window. The importance is on the story, and the story.
It's like one of the pieces I'm currently waiting to be optioned. The budget for that's around 2.5 mil. And it was a story I made based on a dream my wife had. She woke up and told me about this crazy dream, and I'm like, let me get a pen and paper a minute.
Where a lot of my stuff comes from is that same type of thing. Stuff, and then just like life experiences and stuff.
Yes. And that's a question I've come across several times is, how do you make realistic characters? My answer is always people. Yeah. In your life, you will come across all kinds of people, managers, business owners, comedians, people who think they're comedians, all of those kind of things. So base your characters on people you know. And if they look and go, goodness gracious, I'm that person, you did it well. Oh, we got a long comment from John this time. Innovation in both story and how it's told are what I think are going to become the touchstone for movies as we come out of this pandemic. As to low budget, just tell the story. The rest will sort itself out. The biggest thing is that your story resonates with the director. It's the director's job to sell it to the audience. Very eloquently put, John. That was very, very well put.
Yeah.
So tell us about when you write action scenes. Because when I first transitioned from stage to film, it was a bit tricky because on stage, you write in the blocking notes. You know, actor moves stage left, upstage, downstage, center stage. You know, you have the stage directions in there. When you're writing for film, I write what I want the audience to see.
Correct. I mean, it's always the show don't tell type of thing.
Yeah.
And we hear that all the time in this industry and stuff. But like for me, like I said, I'm a minimalist. I try not to clog up the page with over stuff. So like if I'm having a fight scene between two characters, it's character A, character B, they fight. That's unless it's something important like character A pushes character B into locker, because that's something important that I need to see. But other than that, front corner can figure it out.
Well, David just put there, is there such a thing as a realistic character? Aren't they supposed to be like real people, but not quite? And again, that depends on the story. If you're writing a fictional story, then yes. Stan Lee said something once that inspired me when I write characters. Write the imperfections. When someone becomes perfect, they're boring.
Yeah. And I mean, he, like with Iron Man and Robert Downey Jr., you can kind of see that. Where,
well, Robert Downey Jr. was the perfect pick for Iron Man.
Yeah, he is. I mean, he
an alcoholic, womanizing billionaire, and Robert Downey Jr.
Yeah, and I mean, at that point, he was at the low point of his career when they first did the original Iron Man. But
talk about a resurrection story. That man cleaned up, and what a difference.
Yeah. And I mean, even now, from the people that talked to that met him, he's actually really good guy, off the set and stuff. So.
Oh yeah.
But I mean, like just dealing with that character, I mean, you can see the way that he develops from being that egotistical person at the beginning of the Iron Man stories to, spoiler alert, what happens at the end of Endgame.
Yeah, and that's what they played on that through the other films. When Cap says you're not the one to lay down your life and make the hard choice, and then at the end of Endgame, that's exactly what he does. And John just put there, subtext and visual are what sell more than anything. I can't stand a character that verbally the exposition character.
There's sometimes they're necessary evil. I mean, I hate them, but sometimes they are necessary evil.
Sometimes they're, yep.
Because otherwise you may have a 4-hour movie because they're needing to go through all the little nuances or you can have a character just stand there and say, hey, well, let's do this type of thing and explain the plan instead of just showing the 5-hour plan and stuff. So,
slasher films have that guy. All slasher films have that guy. The one that knows the history, knows the story, knows why the killer is killing people and why they're supernatural.
Yeah.
And that guy.
Yeah, Scream makes fun of that with like Randy Meeks played by Jamie Kennedy in the first 3 Scream movies, and then they've transferred that to another character in the fourth, and it's like, but actually does serve a purpose. But and stuff.
Yep. I know I was in a web series a few years ago that I was helping someone get into the film industry. So I was working as a directing coach and writing coach, and then they just said, "Hey, you'll make a great English vampire. Go and be in my web series." Well, okay. And there was one guy that was nothing but exposition. That's his whole purpose in the show, was the exposition guy. And so many people watch the show like, can he like do something else?
Yeah.
And the blonde always runs up the stairs instead of out the door. Thank you, John.
Yeah. But I mean, like, sometimes, like, you have movies like Scream and Galaxy Quest that kind of take those tropes and make fun of them and stuff. So it's kind of fun when they do that.
Me and my wife still have the joke from Galaxy Quest where, we'll get a message or something and we'll both read it, and then she'll read it out loud. I'm like, honey, she goes, I've got one job on this ship. I'm gonna do it.
Yeah, but Exploring Weaver did was perfect for that and stuff.
Yeah, and you brought up Galaxy Quest there. One of the things I love about Galaxy Quest was Patrick Stewart. Wasn't going to watch it, refused to watch it. It was mocking Star Trek, and Star Trek is where he got his start in film acting. He had a fantastic theater career. Even Ian McKellen, said, "Don't give up your theater career for Star Trek because you're an amazing theater actor." And Jonathan Frakes actually told him, "Sit down, watch it." And since then, he loves it because it's not just mocking Star Trek; it's actually acknowledging the fan base and how deep the fans are into these things. And as a writer, that's one of the best compliments you can get, is when your audience is so involved in your stuff that they know more about it than you do.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, with my name, Star Trek comes around a lot since I'm
Yeah,
and stuff. But I mean, I was just having this conversation literally yesterday with some people, and it's like they want to know how. One of the studios was like, "How do you plan on building a fan base, and how do you plan on interacting with the fan base for the final exam?" And it's like, they're going to relate to these characters because they are the characters. It's like they're going to pick one of these guys, and it's like, say this character has this trait. It's like, that's me on the screen. I'm going to follow that and stuff.
yep.
And and that's going to create the fan base and stuff. So, I mean, and get people to interact a little bit.
And like John just put there, typecasting is not a bad thing. Typecasting exists for a reason.
Yeah. Well, I used to work for a talent management company, Dreamscope Entertainment in LA and stuff. And the manager, Julie, she used to have us saying when one of her character actors was complaining about being typecast. It's like, get rid of the word type. You are cast. You get a paycheck.
Yes.
And then go do what you need to do.
And I've been typecast several times. I'm a 6'3" Englishman that weighs 250 pounds. I make the perfect bad guy. I always get cast as evil roles. And I love it. I absolutely think it's the best thing on the planet. Like we were talking about earlier, Alan Rickman often got cast as a bad guy, often got cast as the snide, manipulating character. But he was one of the nicest people I've ever sat and drank with.
Yeah, like on that same thing. When I was working for the management company, one of the people that they represent is his name is Zoran Korac. Some of your audience may know who he is, some may not. But like for the longest time, he was the bad guy in NCIS LA, NCIS New Orleans, NCIS LA, regular one, bad guy, bad guy, bad guy. And one time while I was working there, this role came in for Nickelodeon show, and it was like, well, just go ahead and submit him. Probably nothing will ever come of it. And he ended up booking it. It's called Sam and Cat with Ariana Grande and Jeanette McCurdy. And I mean, he lasted. He was a regular on that. playing Goomer, and now he's playing the same role on, because Nickelodeon kind of keeps all the shows in the same universe. So now he's still playing that role 6 years later on Danger Force, the Henry Danger knockoff, where he played the same role as well. So, I mean, sometimes you do get that one role where you break the cast and then you get into a different cast, and it's like he really thrives in this role and stuff. And I mean, kids around the world know who he is now because of this. But if you go watch his earlier stuff, he's always henchman number 3, henchman number 2, dead before the opening credits type of thing.
Well, David just brought up a nice one here, Basil Rathbone, who is the Sherlock Holmes. Thank you, David. He is. Basil will never be replaced as Sherlock. He was always the bad guy until he got the role of Sherlock. And he nailed it so much that, after that, Basil was Sherlock. Yeah. And, things like that. And that's why the typecasting, you're always a bad guy, you're always a bad guy, you're always a bad guy. And then all of a sudden, bam, oh, what just happened? And a lot of that comes from good writing. If the actor can relate to what you've written, if the actor can put themselves in your character, you're gonna sell. You're gonna have audience engage.
Yeah, like I mentioned earlier, that we just got Michael Campion from Fuller House attached to the final exam as the lead, and it's like I've written the character before this without having Michael involved, and it's like, here's the character, but I've also been, since I've put Michael in this role, and sat down and gotten to know him a little bit, I've been able to add his some little nuances and stuff. For like example, Michael himself is an amazing magician. I mean, he performs at the Magic Castle in LA all the time when there's no COVID and stuff. I highly recommend you guys go check him out there and stuff. But he does, like, one of his bread and butter is like the card tricks. And so one of the things that we incorporated into series is that whenever that character kind of gets nervous or is in like deep thought, he's always got like a deck of cards, or he's doing the shuffling, the fancy shuffling and stuff, and so stuff like that.
And going back to our actors and what they're able to do, John just brought up another great example for us. Arnold himself says Conan made his career, Terminator doubled his price. And going from Conan, the big barbarian there, to the Terminator who just walks around killing everyone, to the kindergarten cop. You want to talk about acting diversity and good writing?
Yeah. I mean, you can throw Twins in there as well for Arnold.
Yeah. Twins is probably one of my favorite Arnie movies. If I'm honest, Twins is probably one of my favorites.
I mean, like, even like the Jingle All the Way. I mean, Arnold Schwarzenegger is an amazing comedic actor when he wants to be.
Yeah.
When he doesn't want to be, when he's doing it for the paycheck, you get Batman and Robin.
Now, as bad as that film was, and as bad as Batman Forever was, I still think the bad guys were well cast, if not well portrayed.
I like Batman Forever, or Jim Carrey was perfect as the Riddler. Batman and Robin with Arnold and Uma, it just kind of, it seemed like they were there.
I was more upset about Bane than I was about Arnold. Bane is a highly intellectual luchador, and he's stamping on the floor going, floor.
Had they put Arnold into the role as Bane in that, I think it would have been a little bit better. Someone else for the Dr. Freud.
Yeah. Oh, those movies. I love the fact that George Clooney even apologizes for taking on the role of Batman. That's a directorial choice to make it that bad.
The rumor has it Michael Keaton's coming back to make an appearance.
Yeah, Batman Beyond as old Bruce Wayne. Now, I'm I'm going to bring this up because I used to work for the CW as a Green Arrow cosplayer for 3 years. The fact that they brought in all of those different DC things in the latest crossover was fantastic.
Yeah.
The mixing in with the
Infinite Earth, the Crisis on the Infinite Earths.
Yeah, it's where you had Burt Ward in a red vest going, "Holy Crimson Skies of Death." You had the Keaton Batman, and then they
House spelling is Clark Kent from Smallville, and even both Flashers like Ezra Miller in the same scene with Grant Gustin.
Oh, that gave me goosebumps, that scene. But the bit that got me the most, the physical representation of Bruce Wayne in that crossover.
Yeah.
The voice of Batman.
Yeah, they got the guy that did the cartoons.
Kevin Conroy to do, yeah.
So, but I mean, in that same universe, if you ever watch it with when Mark Hamill appears, I mean, it's
yes as
I mean, I know he's not technically the Joker, but I mean, he still does an amazing job, basically being the Joker, a live action Joker. And
he's played Trickster before.
He played it in the '90s series.
Yeah, with John Wesley Snip.
Yeah.
And they brought him back for like several seasons in the Flash for the CW.
Yeah, and then they killed him off because I think he went on to a different show. But
yeah. But as far as series writing, to write 5 different shows with somewhat similar themes throughout, and to cross them all into one massive event, that is a team of writers that basically deserve a huge round of applause because
that's what they've done. I mean, I've been impressed with all the crossovers. I mean, the only Arrowverse show that I did really watch is The Flash, but I mean, and stuff. But I mean, even I was able to watch all of them, and it's just like it was an amazing experience just to watch it on TV and stuff.
Yeah,
and get to that point of that. I mean, John Cryer doing Lex Luthor type of thing is just an amazing thing because I hadn't watched him do that on Supergirl and stuff.
Yeah, and again, trying to bring everything back to writing, since that's what this episode's on. Going from one to another to another to another, knowing they're going to be split, knowing they're having that break in the middle. You've got to think, did they write it all as one big and then break it up into episodes? Or did the writing team just sit down and work and work and work and work? Thank you, John.
I don't know exactly what they did, so
as a screenwriter, what would be your best guess?
My best guess is that they took one staff member from each of the series, stuck them in a room, and had them kind of work together as a major writer room led by Greg Berlanti, the EP and showrunner for those, and then while the rest of the writing room kind of focused on the main series and stuff. And so I think that's probably what they did, and that way they could kind of take what they needed to from the Flash and take what they needed to from Supergirl and Arrow and all that stuff. So.
Yeah. Now, one thing, I have one of my clients right now who's writing a screenplay. He just had a book published and he's trying to write a screenplay. Young man from Cameroon, so his English is a little rough at times, but he's doing an amazing job. And he was talking to me today about his ability to create the dialogue. And I know exactly where he's at. He's at that stage that most writers get to, where they've got the idea, they've worked on it, and they just don't think everything's working. My advice is always stick with it. Take a break if you have to, but keep going. Because the progress you make every time you look at it, every time you put your pen to paper, hand to the keyboard, every time you touch up something, you're going to improve a little I know you guys have seen it in the Screenwriting Network, the question, how do you know when your screenplay's finished?
Oh, that one, it's easy. it's finished when the director calls, that's a wrap.
Yep.
I mean, even like that, they're still gonna make changes and stuff. So, I mean, until you're at the wrap party, it's not finished. But like going back to what you were saying about dialogue and stuff, and this may not be an option in Cameroon. I'm not real familiar. I know it's an African nation, but I'm not real familiar with the culture and stuff. But like for people in the U.S. and especially in LA during non-COVID season, is if you're struggling with your dialogue, go spend an hour in the mall.
Yeah, the thing he's looking at, like the screenplay he's writing, is a teen romance. I told him to look up the screenplay for 10 Things I Hate About You.
Mm-hmm.
You know, look up screenplays that have sold. Look at how they talk to each other. Look at how they interacted. Look at everything that's going on. And like John just put there, writing's a process of years, not minutes.
Yeah. And like
I
I said,
go ahead, James. Okay.
What I was saying is, if you have the opportunity, go to where people are and just sit and listen. Listen to how they talk. I mean, if you're sitting like in a mall, at some point you're going to find two teenagers on a date. Just listen to the way they talk to each other, and I mean that's kind of how I've gotten my dialogue to be where it needs to be in order to go to series. Is that the people talk how people talk, because I went and I got a drink and sat in a mall and just listened and people watched for like an hour and a half.
Yeah. But I said, you know, this client of mine, he's doing an amazing job. He really is. But he was getting to that point that, you know, he needed to be told he was doing an amazing job, because it is draining. It can be draining, especially if it's your first time.
Yes, they can.
And
I mean, their job for the playing a part. I mean, some people think, oh, I have an idea for a movie, I can go write it, and then it's no, you didn't write a movie, you wrote something else.
And there are some movies out there, big, huge blockbusters, and their claim to fame is they were written in 3 days. Now, my point when people bring those up is what was written in 3 days was the initial concept script. That's not what they filmed. But David put here, you know, my next project will be based on Brits. I might hit you up. As long as you don't hit too hard, you know, this is a money-making face. But please, go for it, buddy. And then John, James, exactly. Right people for the real world, 1000%.
Yeah, but I mean, like, when you were talking about writing the script in 3 days and stuff, like, I recently wrote an episode for the final exam. I'll get into a little bit more on that in a second, but like this episode, I wrote it in 3 days. It's 40 pages, wrote in 3 days, and I mean, I'm getting great review from the people that have read it, like John down there. I believe he's one of the ones that's read it, and then like, I mean, like, it doesn't necessarily mean that it's bad if it's that short.
Oh goodness, no, not at all.
I mean, you can always improve it and stuff. And like, I mean, I gave this script to Michael to look at it, and I mean, I can't go into details on the script, obviously, but he was from what I was told by his mom, he was floored. They were floored by it, and when I said, "Oh yeah, I just did that over this weekend," just because the story spoke to me. It was a story that I couldn't get away from and stuff. So I mean, I basically didn't sleep for that entire weekend, and I was just sitting at the keyboard typing for the entire weekend and stuff.
Yeah. Well, David just said, you know, hit you up means I would reach out to you. Nothing violent.
You can do both.
Yeah, you know. There's nothing wrong with a little bit of violence between friends, as long as you buy me a drink. That's one thing the Brits love is drink.
Yeah, but like I was saying, one of the things that I do for my series is because I'm producing it myself and stuff, and I mean, I put together the package, is that, and most people that I say that I do this to, they said you're crazy. Is that I'm actually writing the entire first season, every script by myself for the most part. I have a couple of other writers that I'm working with, like John down there. He's helping me out just and stuff, just because I know the story, and so I'm actually writing out every script. I know they're going to change. I know the network's going to give notes, and they're going to give note in episode 2 that's going to change everything. But it's helping me kind of tell the story my way, and so like which helps make me a better pitcher and
Yeah.
stuff.
Now,
Very
you
rarely.
said about John. Here is a thing that James has written scripts for the series that have made me stop and just go, wow, that knocked the wind out of me. And as a writer, as a director, as someone who has done most of the jobs in the film industry, that from one of your readers to say that it knocked the wind out of me, it just made me stop. When that's made, when that's on screen, and your audience have that same reaction, there's no better feeling as a writer, as a director, than when your audience sit there and go, damn.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm trying to have a few of those moments since I'm guest here. I mean, one of my other cast members, who was a regular on a TV show Glee for Fox, read one recently, and he says, literally told me to clear a space off for an Emmy and stuff. And it's like that's not what I do. Why I do this type of stuff is that I want to tell this particular story,
Yes.
and any accolades that come with it is just the gravy and stuff. So.
And that's one of the things that I try and push to my clients. When you're writing, you're not writing for the award.
Yeah.
You're writing to tell the story.
Yeah. And I mean, right now, like with the Oscars and the Emmys, and I'm probably going to piss off a bunch of people with this, it's for those types of awards, it's not the necessarily the best writing. It's not necessarily the best acting or directing that gets the awards. I mean, nowadays it's who has the best PR campaign.
Yes. And that brings us to the end of the show.
Mm-hmm.
So, James, go ahead and plug your stuff. Tell everyone what you can, what you're working on, and thank you very, very much for joining me today. It's been an absolute pleasure, sir.
Thanks again for having me. I hope I was somewhat helpful. But like I said, the final exam should, depending on COVID, should probably start filming late next year. With Michael Campion and a bunch of Glee people. So if you follow those, check us out. The show that I currently have in production is called The After School Show with Jack Legend. It's a podcast that's being transitioned into television. There's an episode on iTunes, Spotify, and probably a couple of other places. Check out wherever you get your podcast.
Excellent.
And stuff.
So there you go, ladies and gentlemen. We have James Kirk, also known as the Captain.
Thanks again for having me.
Thank you for joining us.